All right, thanks so much for joining us for this Arizona's Family on Your Side special. After the storm, cleaning up, navigating insurance. I'm Derek Staahl, that's Susan Campbell. You know, for the next half hour or so, we're going to talk about what people should do, what people should know, because so many people got damaged yesterday in Tempe, and a lot of people have questions.
Yeah, it's on everybody's mind. I checked in with just State Farm. For one example, they said they had already fielded like 600 calls for claims this morning, and they are expecting that number to grow as people go outside, assess the damage, see what else is going on. So that's just one company. So that gives you kind of an idea of the scope of the problem that we're dealing with. So many trees down.
Yeah, I mean, the video is insane.
So many roof problems.
Right.
It is wild.
So let's take a look at some of the videos here and just kind of look back at this storm yesterday. There was a microburst that rolled through Tempe yesterday afternoon around 1 o'clock or so. And it brought a punch. I mean, we're talking about winds that reached up to 71 miles an hour, powerful rain. This is near Baseline and Kyrene, and it just gives you a sense of this thing looks like a tornado.
It's so powerful, so intense for that burst of time, and you can understand why so many people ended up with roof problems and trees down because it is just so incredibly powerful from this security camera footage. We are also seeing there's the result of that, right? This is a series of homes with the roofs blown right off. You could see one of these homes ended up actually off of its foundation right there.
How does that happen? I mean, it's wild. I mean, it looks like something you would see in Tornado Alley. We know at least 130 people were forced to find another place to stay because they were in a situation like that. They had no roof. Let's take a look at another video here. This is an apartment complex after the microburst hit. This is a Rise apartment complex on the corner of Guadalupe and Hardy in Tempe. You've got carports and you've got trees down,
and look
all
how
sorts
thick
of cars.
Those trees are.
Yeah. I mean, so there's kind of two components here, Susan, that I want to dive into. One is navigating homeowners insurance. The other is navigating auto insurance and the like. And let's start on the homeowners insurance side of the equation. What do you do if you're in a situation like this and you've got damage to your home?
Ooh, okay, guys, we're going to take a big deep breath first because we're going to get through this. I know it is stressful, but we are going to handle it. First thing you want to do, I'm sure you've already done this, document the damage, take photos, take videos. Derek and I were actually chatting a little bit. Even if you have a friend who has a drone that has a camera on it, get that drone up in the air so you can get a little bit of video of the roof and maybe from a different angle. You just want to have all of your angles covered. You also want to make sure you are contacting your insurance company before you start any cleanup or repairs. If you do not take that really important step, they could deny your claim because they want to see the whole scope of the damage to make sure you don't damage it any further and cause any extra problems. So that is super critical. Then once they give you the go-ahead, keep all your records and receipts of the cleanup, of the repairs, everything that happened. So you have just that document trail that's going to help you with your claim. Yeah,
that's great information. And obviously that's what you do if you have damage. But let's say somebody's watching this special from home. They weren't in Tempe, fortunately, and they're thinking, I need to learn from this experience. Should folks go around and take initial photos, videos, et cetera, to show this is what it looks like on a normal day?
I love that advice. It's the best advice in the world because you will be able to prove where things are in your house and what you actually have. It is so simple. Walk through, save that 2-minute video to your camera roll. You've got it forever. And then you can send it into your insurance company if you ever do have a problem and say, this is exactly what I have.
Right.
This is exactly what needs to be replaced. And you don't have to go back and rack your brain like, oh, did I have this? Did I have that? I forget what was in that closet in the guest room that I never actually check. That just makes it so simple.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so one of the situations that we encountered here in the newsroom is we got lots of videos of trees down, and in some cases it's your neighbor's tree falling on your house. What do folks do in that situation?
Wow, that is incredible video. So if your neighbor's tree falls on your house, you have to call your own homeowner's insurance company. Your homeowner's policy is going to cover any damage that happens to your house. There are certain circumstances where your insurance company might reach out to your neighbor's insurance company and say, let's figure out a deal here. We gotta figure out a solution. But your primary contact is always your insurance company. You let your neighbor deal with their insurance company, and then, oh my goodness, those trees, they're huge.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with trees that big. Often, homeowners insurance policies will cover tree cleanup, tree removal, but like at a very minimal amount, like $500 to $1,000 is pretty standard in a lot of policies.
Not going to cover a
that
huge
wouldn't
tree.
cover it for something like that. So those are the really important conversations you have to have with your insurance agent about what's actually going to be covered and how to make sure the coverage actually covers you.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is I'm looking at the video right here. Half of the tree is on one side of the property. The other half of the tree, let's say, is on our side of the property. And we need to remove the whole tree. I guess there's a conversation that you have to have with your neighbor at a certain point.
Absolutely. So you have the conversation with your neighbor. In this case, it looks like it would probably be a lot easier to access the tree, to cut it down from the neighbor's yard, right?
The pool side.
So you are hoping that you have that good open line of communication, but ultimately it is your responsibility. Whatever's on your property line, it's going to be your responsibility to at least get that part of it handled.
So, okay, we're seeing more videos here, and let's say, we have a house that was, it was damaged, but not severely. Like we're talking about, maybe couple thousand dollars in damage. And people might be wondering, should I file a claim or should I, cover this out of pocket? What are the implications in there?
That's another thing that a lot of people are kind of grappling with right now, because we do know that insurance premiums have just been skyrocketing recently anyway, right? And any claim has the potential to make your premium go up even more or make you uninsurable. An insurance company might say, I don't feel like carrying your policy anymore because you are a risky client.
Even if it's not my fault, even if it's weather.
It's not my fault, it's so unfair. Certainly you couldn't have done anything to prevent this. There's no amount of tree trimming or anything that you could have done to keep that tree from falling or the roof from leaking, but there are this is a challenge. So you have to start going through the process, do the math. If your deductible is going to be close to what the repairs might cost, I would just go ahead.
Pay it out of pocket.
Pay it out of pocket. And that's an important point. You want to call your insurance company, ask about the coverage. Do not say I'm filing a claim. Just say I'm inquiring about coverage to see how much something like this might be covered at. What is my deductible? Remind me of all these things that I forget about that are in the fine print, right? Because so much of this is all in that fine print. You get homeowners insurance a long time ago, you re-up it every 6 months, and you never think about it again. So you're gonna have to go back to that little fine print. And when you are looking at this, I wanna read through these quick bullet points. Check your claim history. So if you have made previous claims, that's gonna be maybe a factor in your decision.
Especially if they're in the last couple of years, right? Because if it's within the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, that shows up on your little insurance record more so than a claim that was 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely, 1,000,000%. So then you are going to just check your policy. Also, I want to mention this about things that might not be covered that you actually think are covered. So like, say you have a boat that's parked at your house.
Sure.
That probably isn't actually covered under your homeowner's insurance policy, even though it's parked at your house. Maybe the tree falls on the boat. That's a totally separate policy. You gotta check on a different area with that. So there are so many little steps you have to take to get through this process, but you wanna know what's in each policy.
Yeah, I love that advice of have the conversation with the insurance company, but from the standpoint of, hey, I'm just gathering information. I just wanted to check in on what kind of policy I have, rather than calling them and saying, hi, I'd like to file a claim.
Right.
That gives you a little more leverage later on.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about cleanup and repairs, because a lot of people, including myself, by the way, I live in Tempe. I had some trees come down in my backyard, no damage, nothing structural, but some trees are now knocked over, and so I got to get to a landscaper. How do I get a contractor? What's the right way to do it?
Yeah, there might be someone driving around your neighborhood today, knocking on doors, right? Trying to say, hey, I'm here, I've got my chainsaw. Let's take a beat. I know you want to get everything cleaned up, but we want to make sure we're doing this the right way. We are going to talk about that in depth in just a couple minutes.
Welcome back to this Arizona's Family on Your Side special. What to do after the storm? That's the question at the Phoenix Zoo right now. The Phoenix Zoo is closed for the next couple of days because they are dealing with significant damage. The zoo says they're super grateful. No animals, no guests, no staff, no volunteers got hurt, but they did have some damage. They have that 50-foot tall digital floating tree in the main lake. That got toppled over. They were also setting up for zoo lights, which is such a huge event every year. The tunnel got damaged. So for the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, they're going to be closed so they can focus on cleanup and restoration efforts.
I love zoo lights so much, and I'm so relieved to hear that they're going to be able to get everything back up and running. That tunnel is always so fun to walk through. It feels magical, and I know how critical it is for them to just get everything back to normal.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, 2 days is not all that bad. So glad to hear that they're going to be all right after this. Let's take a look at some more video here. This is on the US 60 eastbound between the I-10 and Mill Avenue. And boy, it was just really coming down. I'm very familiar with this stretch of roadway. This is right where I get off, and it looks like
debris
the end.
in the road.
Oh,
so
man.
Dangerous to drive in, and you have to be so careful because you never know how much water is actually on the road in those puddles. You know, right there, it looks like maybe not so much, but all of a sudden you could have several inches of water that can float a car. You can lose control, you can hydroplane, and we just want to remind people who are watching that even that kind of situation can become really dangerous really fast.
Yeah, so before the break, we were talking about how to pick the right contractor for the job. So I want to pick back up that part of the conversation. What should people do?
Yeah, so you want to make sure that the person who's going to come work on your home is going to do a great job and you're not going to overpay for it. So get several estimates. I know you want your house to be fixed and back to normal as soon as possible, but it's not going to behoove you to just go with a first estimate that shows up. Several estimates. Ask for referrals. We all have certain family members, friends that we trust a lot. We trust their opinions. Ask those people who they use to work on their house. You want to verify your own insurance coverage to make sure that the work you're planning to do is actually covered under your insurance and you're not going to be out of pocket for it if you have decided to file a claim. Then you also want to verify the licenses and insurance of the people who are going to be doing the work on your house. You might have somebody showing up and saying, I've got a chainsaw, I'm going to cut down the trees, help you out, and it'll be a few $100. You don't want that person in your backyard working on your property if they are not properly insured, because if something goes wrong, now you're back on the hook.
How do you recommend people do that? I mean, I've heard of the Arizona Registrar of Contractors. I've heard of the Better Business Bureau. What do you check?
Yeah, the Registrar of Contractors is going to help you with anybody contractor related. Everybody has to have a license. They will be registered, and you can check to see if they have had previous violations or any investigations that are open on them. It's an easy thing to check. You can just ask somebody for their number. You type it into the website, off to the races. Better Business Bureau is also a great place to go and look. It just gives you kind of a sense of the reviews that people have left recently about companies. And I love reviews from people online as a starting point. I would never say that that's the end all be all. I think those personal references are always a little bit more valuable because you know the person who's doing it, not just somebody behind a keyboard.
Yeah, and if you're asking a person at your door for their contractor number, that's a step beyond what most people would do in that situation. So that puts you obviously ahead, and that's very helpful. What about renters? What do renters need to know?
So if your house, or if the house or the apartment that you're renting was damaged, that's your landlord's issue to deal with their insurance company. Anything structural that happens, you don't have to worry about. But if you had contents inside that were damaged because of this, say there's a giant gaping hole in your roof because a tree smashed through it and then everything got rained on and flooded for an hour, that would fall into your renter's insurance policy. So you would have to contact your own renter's insurance company to file that claim. That would not be something that your landlord would cover to make up the difference for anything that was damaged.
You know, in Arizona, sometimes we talk about in the heat, the landlord has certain responsibilities to restore air conditioning promptly. After a storm, do we know if there's any sort of similar requirements for them to get out there and get the place habitable?
Yeah, that's kind of the key word. Habitable is important, but there are also all kinds of little caveats here where we recognize that an entire house can't be rebuilt
in 3 business
the
days
5
or whatever.
business days or whatever. So there are caveats, but there is an expectation that they would work with you to make sure that there is somewhere for you to go, or at least that they are not going to charge you in the interim if you cannot stay at your place.
And if you have renter's insurance, that typically will cover the cost of you having to stay in another place
somewhere else for temporary, for a short amount of time. And just a plug for renter's insurance. It is very affordable. So if you don't have it, buy it. You can get a policy for probably $10 a month. Yeah,
it comes in handy. Okay, let's talk about auto insurance and that side of the equation. What's interesting is you mentioned earlier that insurers, with your home, they can raise your rates after a no-fault accident. But in Arizona, there's actually protections, I just learned. If you have a no-fault accident with your car, they cannot raise your rates.
It's one little sliver of relief.
We need it. We need anything we can get.
That is a very small silver of lining. We know that insurance rates just across the board have gone up, and it is so wild to look at some of these videos of all these vehicles that have been damaged. And it happened at carports. We had carports falling onto vehicles. We also just had the trees falling onto it. This all falls under your own personal car insurance policy. You need to check that policy to see what kind of coverage you have. If you have liability coverage only, you're out of luck. That's not going to cover your car. What's going to cover your car is comprehensive insurance. So if you have that comprehensive, you are much more likely to get your claim covered, handled. And again, when it comes to repairs, get the estimates. Don't go with the first option that pops up because it might not be the best option.
Good information. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the flooding situations out in Globe, Miami, and scams. They
always happen.
It happens every time, so don't fall for it. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for streaming along with us today. We know people are following along in the chat. We appreciate hearing from everybody. We've had lots of interesting comments today. One just came in and it said, if you have a mortgage, get the mortgage company involved. They have a vested interest in the property being repaired. I thought that was interesting advice. Always worth a phone call. I love getting extra information, and extra information can always be helpful. So I love the advice. Thank you so much for streaming along, chatting with us. Lots to talk about today, obviously.
Yeah, let's talk about the flooding side of all this now. We've seen a little bit of flooding in the metro area, but significant flooding, obviously, in Globe, Miami. And I think a lot of people are wondering how flooding works with insurance. Is it covered by a typical insurance policy?
Simple answer to that one. Flooding is never covered by typical homeowners insurance policy. So if you want flood insurance, you need to go through the National Flood Insurance Program. Those policy rates are going to be unique depending on your location, how close you are to different areas that are floodplains. There's typically a 30-day waiting period, so you can't just see a storm rolling in and go, ooh, I want to snap up a new policy. There's going to be that waiting period. You can insure yourself for up to $250,000 for homes, and then an extra $100,000 for contents. It can be less that you insure yourself for, but those are the maximums there.
Okay, and then of course, in the days and weeks and months to come, it's possible that we could see, cars on the market that got flooding damage. It's something that we see after major storms all over the place. What should people watch out for so they don't buy one of these, damaged, defunct cars? Yeah,
the worst thing you could do is get one of these cars without realizing it. Now, flooded cars can end up on the market legitimately if they have a salvage title. Unfortunately, scammers sometimes try to get them out to a car lot without that salvage title. So you're going to want to check for things, super simple things, musty odor or really a strong air freshener scent. It's going to be one telltale sign. Loose upholstery or carpeting. If you see rust around the doors or the pedals or the latches on the trunk, something like that might be a tip-off. Brittle wires under the dashboard are also a telltale sign that there might have been some water in the cab of the car at one point. And then look for fog or moisture beads in lights. Flooding in cars can cause dramatic electrical problems. throughout a car that are really hard to solve later once you have it.
In your experience, do these flood cars show up at legitimate, used car lots, certified pre-owned places, or are they more happening in these private party sales, or do you see it everywhere?
Yeah, so legitimately they can have the salvage title. That might be on a dealership's lot. Otherwise, you might see it at a less reputable place where they're trying to just get some money for a car that's not worth quite that much.
Yeah. Talk about some of the other scams that are pretty common in the days, ahead. We often hear about these storm chasers, fake contractors, and the like.
You name it. And even charity scams. You want to avoid things that pop up that say, donate to this charity because we're going to help everybody who's been flooded or with tree damage. Just go to legitimate sources. We want you to use your money wisely.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us today for this special On Your Side coverage. We'll have much more coverage coming up on Arizona's Family. Thanks for streaming.
To keep watching Arizona's Family, download our free streaming app, AZF Plus. Get unique local content, breaking news, and first alert weather anytime.